My people, thanks for tapping in. Thanks for tapping in. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't already. 100 Years of Wealth. It's your boy Kenneth. If you ever hear me say Callus 100, that's my old graffiti name. Well, I won't say old, it's always going to be with me, but I've had a few throughout the years, had to let some go for different reason. Feds was watching. But point is, if you ever hear that name, it's just a creative expression name, my boy. But look, let's tap into this topic really quickly. This topic actually touches home for me in a real way, right? So recently, the biggest story, or one of the biggest stories that's going on that's happened, is that California, Los Angeles area, California has been hit hard with wildfires, right? Wildfires that people would never expect, mainly because the areas that they've hit aren't really traditionally, I guess, what you consider, fire zones or places where you're at a high risk of a wildfire to spread from house to house. Usually that's going to happen in high brush areas, forest areas, areas where people are more like off in the woods, camp type environments, things like that. But in this situation, these people were close enough to where the fire started to catch embers that blew onto their rooftops and into their attics. At least this is what the scientists say. The conspiracy theorists will tell you that it was a ray gun, a solar ray gun coming down from the sun. No one has videos of it, right? No one has any video of this on a planet where every single person, including women or including children, babies, cats, and dogs, have a camera, but no one has videos of the solar ray. Okay, sorry. But I digress. So that's how the fire spread. Winds that were very powerful. I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm south of where the fires happened. And the winds were crazy down here those days, right? Like the first day of the winds, it was like, in my backyard, I don't have any, I have bushes that are fairly low, right? I don't have any trees that are really high, but my backyard neighbor has crazy like tall bush and shrubbery and like palm trees and different types of monstera plants and things like that. And they're all higher than the fence, which is probably like an 8-9 foot fence. Those things were going wild. Just crazy wind for, I would say consistent for hours at a time. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't letting up. You would have a moment of let up, but the most part was just wind blowing. So with that, you had embers and, debris that was on fire flying miles ahead of the fire, they say, right? And they said that instead of it going uphill, which would have pushed the fires back into the hills, the winds were kind of pushing downhill. Very crazy, right? And very unfortunate for both Palisades area, for Altadena area. There's a lot of politics, or politicking going on in regards to the populations of those areas, because one is probably a more affluent group, while one may not have been as affluent. But overall, Altadena, the homes in that area are very nice. And I would say a single family residence in Altadena is probably 700, 800,000 and more, right? Like my wife is an attorney, and the person she works for, or one of the people or partners that she works for, lives in Altadena, in a very nice home that was very close to being damaged. Neighbors' houses burned down, but luckily for that person, his didn't. But my point is that Altadena isn't just the one-sided projection that you'll get where it's just like, hey, these are just the poor people. No, it's not. Altadena, you do have, I would think that you have more of a working class community. And the reality of California is that any area that's decent, for one, prices go up and gets turned into a really nice area. Now, if you're a nice area already, meaning you have like nice schools, a nice environment, you have trees, you have hillside, you have like a cracking downtown in Pasadena. Altadena was already a nice place. And I think that, just the reality of, prices of homes have driven prices in that area up as well. And there's a lot of nice features of Altadena, views of downtown Los Angeles from the hills, things like that. So I know this because I actually spent a lot of time growing up in Altadena. And I discovered recently, my grandparents, my mom, they didn't really give me this type of information before, but through social media, we find out a lot of things. But it was talking about how Altadena was one of, if not the first community to outlaw redlining, which allowed Black families that were migrating from the South in different areas to actually purchase homes. So, you know, that's how we landed there, right? Like my grandfather and my grandmother bought a house up in, I don't know the exact street, but it's a little bit further up in the hills in Altadena. And the messed up thing is that when they sold the house, it was an opportunity for the kids, like my aunt and uncles and my mom, to actually take over the house. And the mortgage, I think, was like $200 or $300. But at that time, you know, for a lot of people, real estate wasn't being taught as like an asset you just hold on forever, right? Maybe, I'm sure, for some, but not for everyone. I think nowadays it's like you want to hold on to something if you can. I think it's a pretty common knowledge. So they ended up selling it. The kids were like, "Oh, we don't want to stay up there. We want to go to LA or we want to do whatever." They ended up selling the property, moving down into LA. I think that's when they moved from there to Spalding. And then I think later on they moved over to 6th Avenue, or my grandfather moved to 6th Avenue. But my point is that my family, besides, you know, being, or that side of the family, from New Orleans to LA to Altadena, and spent a lot of time up there. Even after I moved there, I lived there probably from, you know, sometime in kindergarten to, I think maybe 4th grade. I finished 4th grade there, but my grandmother had a house there and she stayed there. So anyone that knows Altadena, right up there by Franklin Elementary School, Lincoln and Ventura, we're right up there off of North Columbia. So even after I left, when I was, you know, 9 years old, living there, my grandmother stayed there, and I ended up moving back in with her when I was like 18 years old, living in Altadena again. For a little while before she ended up moving. But it was just a dope little community, you know, like the vast majority of all the people that we knew were Black. We had, you know, on our street, there might have been like, you know, I think there was like an Asian person or Asian woman that lived on our block. I don't know what, you know, ethnicity or what descent Asian, but just of the Asian descent woman. I try to be so politically correct, and I think there might have been one or two, you know, non-Black kids in our school. Probably more than that, but from my recollection, it was a vast majority Black community, and it was dope. It was cool. We played baseball there, and not to say I only wanted it to be Black. No, it's not that. I'm just pointing out the reality of what that community was. Jackie Robinson. I used to go down to Jackie Robinson Park, which is lower down, I think right on the borderline of Pasadena and Altadena. And I just found out that Jackie Robinson's house was actually in Altadena as well. So there's just a lot of history in that area. And it is really sad that a lot of people that live there may not be able to rebuild. You know, I think that's sometimes the difference, or that's a big difference in certain communities. If the house was paid off and passed down to you, and let's say that you have a nice home, but your income is, you know, average. Maybe you're like a, blue collar, whatever. I don't want to use these categories, but let's just say that you're making income that makes it to where you're like, okay, should I have homeowners insurance or not, right? Obviously, the goal is to protect yourself at all times, but some people might be living there for a while. They're like, look, nothing has happened here. You know, we're pretty safe. We understand the risk. We should be good, not expecting something crazy like this to happen. And if you don't have a mortgage on the property, there's no one requiring you to maintain insurance, right? So that's the thing, that's the reality of even people like in the Palisades. There's probably some people that were like, hey, look, if I did have some sort of crazy high insurance quote for insurance, maybe because I was in a fire zone, maybe they're like, hey, look, I don't owe anything on my mortgage, the likelihood of a certain type of calamity happening is very low. I'd rather forego that. Dude, I'm the type that I'll be telling that to my wife a lot of times with the earthquake insurance. That shit's so damn expensive. I'm the risk taker where I'm like, babe, do we really need to be paying $400 a month for a what if on a 100-year-old house that, sorry about that, on a 100-year-old house that probably could withstand a very, very strong earthquake, which actually has withstood very strong earthquakes. But they always say, get the insurance, right? And I think that that's the wise decision. My point is that people start to pull back on those things, you know, if it's expensive, if financially they're on a budget, if their financial situations change, you could see people pulling back and be like, yeah, I'm not going to hold insurance right now, and just kind of hope for the best. And I think a lot of people got caught into that, or caught in that situation, especially along with people having insurance canceled, right? So a lot of conspiracies out there. I can't speak on everything, but what I do know about insurance is that homeowners insurance, it's annual policies. So if you pay for a homeowner's insurance in January of 2024, your policy would go all the way through to January 2025, right? If you paid for a policy in June of 2024, your policy would go through all the way to June of 2025. So there's no ability for an insurer to come in prior to your policy ending and canceling your policy, right? That would be illegal, that would be wrong, that would violate all sorts of insurance good faith rules and laws. What they can do is say that we're not renewing your policy. And even though it's fucked up because you're dealing with someone's home, it's not just it's not like you're insuring a piece of jewelry, this is where they live. These are things that are out of someone's control. I do understand the fact that it is a business, and if you don't have the ability to pay out on claims, then I can understand that. But what I would say is this is where I think that the government has to protect consumers, and there should be some sort of, this isn't a well thought out perspective, but I would think that it makes sense to have some sort of rule in place where it's like, hey, look, if you're going to cancel insurance, you can't just cancel it at the end of this policy, right? Like 3 months prior, you tell me that you're going to cancel my homeowner's insurance. I got a 30-year mortgage now. I just got to start hoping that someone's going to insure me. I would say that you should be required to have a longer period, maybe a year, right? Hey, look, we're canceling your insurance policy at the end of next year, right? You guys have been collecting tons of money without major payouts for years upon years, investing that money, quadrupling it, whatever, right? So I just think it's unfair for you to be, oh, hey, the risk got high, I'm out of here, while people have been paying and paying and paying and paying into it. So I think in that situation, if you have a scenario where you're able to give people a longer period of time to adjust out of the insurance that you have or that you're going to cancel, then I think that's more fair. You don't have to be beholden to them for the rest of existence. But hey, look, you've had a policy here. You bought an annual policy. We're letting you know that at the end of this new annual policy, we're canceling out of that area. You have a whole year to make moves that, you know what I mean? So my point in all of this, just to give you a little trip down memory lane, like I said, I spent a lot of time in Altadena, still spend a lot of time in Pasadena, still take little road trips up to Altadena, got pictures with my son running around the park that I used to play baseball on, it was called WALL, West Altadena Little League. So it definitely hit home to see, houses over there burned, to have, like my aunt and uncle's really close friend that we went camping with, send pictures of, his neighbor's house crushed by a massive tree that fell because the ground was so soaked with water in combination with the 100-mile-per-hour winds, massive trees, just crazy, crazy things happening. This is nature, this is life. I personally I can't understand the logic of it being some sort of bigger plot to create space for land. Even in Palisades per se, right? Yes, that's highly coveted land, but there's other land around there. You know what I mean? Like there's land in Malibu. Maybe you don't want to go that far, so you'd rather burn down thousands of houses of rich and powerful people. I don't see that as a logic that makes sense, right? But you know, a lot of people are like, isn't it strange that, you know, I get real tired of those. How about you give me the full information and not play the isn't it strange game? I would appreciate that. But hey, look, 100 years of wealth. Shout out to Altadena. Shout out to Palisades. I actually got a little bit of history there too, because when I was living in Inglewood, my senior year of high school, Palisades is a charter school, so you don't have to live in Palisades to actually go to Palisades High School. And I had always thought Palisades was kind of a cool school. For one, it's a cool school, not a cool school, a cool school. For one, it's right off the beach, like literally like, you know, Temescal Canyon Road, I think it is. Go up PCH, make that right, go up a little bit. Palisades is around the left-hand side. So I know that they sustained some damage, but I've seen video where it looks like overall the majority of the school is still standing. But yeah, my senior year, I spent some time there, and it was cool. I probably got my best grades at Palisades, and that was probably because I didn't know anybody really. Had some crazy stuff happen while I was there though, because don't get it twisted, even though it's far from the hood is not far from it, if you feel me. But yeah, on the way to school, no lie, we would drive up PCH in the morning. This is like, you know, 1998, right? I graduated in 99. This is 1998. We're seeing them shoot Baywatch on the beach, right? Just kind of something interesting. You're like, oh shit, they're shooting Baywatch. And then I would also, when I would get dropped off at school, I would be seeing Vlade Divac jogging around the track in the morning. So, you know, just it was a cool little period. I didn't stay there long. It was just like the majority of my first half of my senior year, or like a good portion of it. And then I had some drama, ended up moving back with my mom. But point in that was just that I had some ties in both of those areas that had real damage from the fire. And when I was in Palisades, I worked at the Noah's Bagels up there on Sunset. And it was so dope because we were a little bagel shop in Palisades, but all the people that were working there, or let me not say all, but some of the people that were working there, at least a good handful, were from LA. And it was like, you know, it was just a dope vibe, you know what I mean? Like we'd be back there kind of having like little inside jokes. The guy who was running it, I can't remember exactly where he was from, but he was pretty sure he was a Mexican dude that was from somewhere. I don't know if it was like Boyle Heights or what, but he was our boss, and it was dope to have him as a manager. It wasn't no prissy bullshit going on there. It was fun, man. But that was a cool little job, man. It was a cool job. I loved eating the little sandwiches there. You know what I mean? So good times. But I heard that place sustained a bunch of damage as well. You know, really unfortunate. But I assume they'll be able to rebuild. I hope that, you know, the government does what it's supposed to do and steps in and tries to make people's life easier during these times. And you know, I don't really know. Hopefully we can figure out a way to prevent stuff like this. You know, you gotta, if you're in government, if you're in, you know, yeah, if you're in government, local government, national government, whatever, you gotta be figuring out ways to make it to where your people can live safely, even if there's an uphill battle or a big challenge of trying to figure that stuff out. It is what it is. That's your job. You're stepping into a role where your only role is to figure out how to make things better for a selected group of people. So on that note, like and subscribe. 100 years of wealth. I hope all is well. Have a great year, and we're gonna keep the content flowing.